Hello, Namaste, Jai Hind. I am Dr. Ashutosh Kumar Pandey, and topic of discussion for this video is carbon footprint. We will see how carbon footprints are important and how they differ from ecological footprint. So let us get started. So what is carbon? Carbon is nothing but a non-metallic chemical element in group 14 of the periodic table. It makes up only about 0.25% of Earth's crust, yet it forms more compounds than all other elements combined. Do you know how much percentage of your body is composed of carbon? How much? If you know the answer, please comment in the comment section. Without carbon, life on Earth would be impossible. This is partly due to carbon's capacity to easily make bonds with other atoms, allowing biomolecules like DNA and RNA, which are necessary for life's defining features of development and reproduction, to take a variety of shapes and functions. So the keyword over here is the carbon's capacity to easily make bonds with other atoms. Carbon is found and exchanged between the atmosphere, ocean, terrestrial plants, soil. So it just moves in a cyclic manner, and they are the global reservoirs. The carbon equilibrium between these reservoirs is critical for life. You know, carbon is a fantastic element. You know why? Because carbon atoms are arranged in a certain way, then they form a soft, flexible graphite, as you see in your pencils. And rearrange the atom, and you will get diamond, which is one of the hardest mineral on the planet. So let us talk about impact of humans on carbon cycle. So carbon moves in cyclic manner on our Earth. It involves the atmosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere. So here it can see it is atmosphere. Here it is lithosphere, and here hydrosphere is being shown. So it involves water, land and air. What happens? The atmospheric carbon dioxide is the major carbon presence in atmosphere. That means in atmosphere carbon is present as carbon dioxide basically or mostly. And from where does it come? It can come from some human activities. The pathways which are affected by humans are given in red lines. So like transportation, deforestation, forest fire, etc. can contribute to the atmospheric carbon dioxide, while the biggest contributor to the atmospheric carbon dioxide is the burning of fossil fuel. And where this fossil fuel is coming from? It is coming out from the carbon which was some millions of years ago became part of the land surface as fossils, and now humans are extracting it out as oil and coal, and then we are burning it, and this fixed carbon which was already present in the earth crust is being now released as carbon dioxide into the atmosphere after fossil fuel burning. So humans are the biggest contributors in terms of fossil fuel burning, along with some other activities like transportation, deforestation and forest fires. Forest fire is also shown in blue color. That signifies that forest fire can be natural also, along with it being caused by some human arson and anthropogenic activities also. So carbon dioxide is also coming from some natural sources like respiration happening in animals, respiration happening in plants. Both will contribute to the carbon dioxide, and then this carbon is being transferred to the atmosphere. Also this carbon is being utilized in the process of decomposition, and after that some part is sent back to the carbon on the fossil fuel or in the soil as a process of compaction. So diffusion, compaction, and some other processes like photosynthesis, respiration is happening all around, and this is how carbon dioxide is cycling, or rather carbon is cycling in the atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere. This is called the carbon cycle. So the question arises, what is carbon footprints? So a carbon footprint is the amount of greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide and methane, which is released into the atmosphere by particular human activities, either directly or indirectly. So it is a very important means to understand the impact of a person's behavior on global warming. It is calculated by adding the emission resulting from every stage of a product or service's lifetime. So material production, manufacturing, use and end of life all would be added up, and then the carbon footprint would be calculated. According to WHO, that is World Health Organization, a carbon footprint is a measure of the impact your activities have on the amount of carbon dioxide, that is CO2, produced through the burning of fossil fuels, and is expressed as a weight of carbon dioxide emission produced in tons. So it is believed that a zero waster wants their carbon footprint as low as possible. So if you are a zero waster, you would like to be your carbon footprint to be as low as possible. The higher the carbon footprint, the more waste or greenhouse gases a person is creating and contributing to the atmosphere. So let us talk about the origin of carbon footprint concept. The carbon footprint concept is derived from ecological footprint concept, which was developed by Canadian ecologist William Rees and Swiss-born regional partner Mathis Wackerangle at the University of British Columbia in 1990. The ecological footprint measures how fast we consume resources and generate waste compared to how fast nature can absorb our waste and generate resources. So it is the comparison between these two rates. A carbon footprint, on the other hand, is generally stated as weight measurement such as tons of CO2 or CO2 equivalent per year. So carbon footprint talks in terms of carbon only, while ecological footprints are talking about resources, its rate of generation and waste, and the rate of generation of waste. So this is how these two concepts are different from each other. Let us talk about the types of carbon footprint. So it can be primary footprint. The primary footprint is the sum of direct carbon dioxide emission of burning of fossil fuel, such as the domestic energy consumption by furnaces and water heaters, and transportation such as automobile and airplane travel. So this is directly emitted by your activities. Then there are secondary footprints. The secondary footprint is sum of indirect emissions associated with the manufacture and breakdown of all products, services, and food an individual or business consumes. So secondary one is not directly emitted by you, but it actually is the sum of indirect emissions that is associated with the manufacture and breakdown of all products, services, and food that an individual or business use. Suppose you are buying a tomato. So there is a tomato and you are buying it, and this tomato is actually coming from your local market. It is being grown in a local area and you are buying it, so its carbon footprint will be low. However, if you buy the same tomato from New Zealand, suppose, so when it comes from New Zealand, it will be the same tomato, but it will have the whole transportation charge, the transportation by by air, by whatever, everything would be added to this tomatoes carbon footprint, and it will be not to the carbon footprint of the tomato, but your footprint, who is the consumer, will it be counted as it will be counted as the secondary footprint of that particular person who is consuming it. So it is better to eat local and buy local food as far as possible. So carbon emission and its effect on environment. Carbon emission are a form of greenhouse gas emission that occurs when carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere as a result of human activities. According to a 2017 data, carbon emission comprised 82% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in the US. Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are released when fossil fuels are burned. This is a well-known fact. By trapping solar energy in the atmosphere, carbon emissions boost global temperatures. This has an impact on water supply, weather patterns, and growing seasons of food crops, and put coastal population at risk from sinking sea levels, from the rising sea levels. The Environmental Protection Agency predicts the climate change will cause the demand for the water to increase while the supply of water shrinks, and a concept of zero day happening. I will make a separate video on zero day very soon. So let us talk about the emissions and its sources. Greenhouse gases trap heat and make the earth warmer. Various human activities like burning of fossil fuel, electricity, transportation, agriculture, etc. are responsible for the increasing greenhouse gas emissions. According to US EPA, there are 6 main sources of greenhouse gases as transportation, second one is electricity production, third one being industry, fourth is commercial and residential, fifth one is agriculture, and sixth one is the land use and forestry. So these all are the main sources. According to EPA's report of 2017, transportation alone accounted for 28.9% of all greenhouse gas emissions, making it the worst offender of this category. So here, in this figure, we can see that how agriculture, forestry, industry, energy supply, wastewater, transportation, commercial buildings, residential buildings, electricity supply, heat supply, livestock, and other sources of greenhouse gas emissions are there. So if we talk about global greenhouse gas emission by sector in world, this is how in year 2016 global greenhouse gas emissions were recorded. They were around 49.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, and you can see that energy sector is the maximum contributor to the global greenhouse gas emissions, followed by agricultural, forestry, and land use being at 18%, and then industry, and then waste. And after that, there are so many other contributors which are marginally present all around. So how do we measure carbon footprint? Carbon footprint is measured as how many tons of carbon dioxide are emitted per year, and takes into consideration all other noxious greenhouse gases like methane. So the traditional way to estimate a carbon footprint is called life cycle assessment, which involves adding up many of the emissions pathway. An alternative approach is input-output analysis. This aims to avoid missing out pathways by taking the total emissions of a country or a region, dividing it into different sectors, and estimating the total emission that each sector accounts for. There are many carbon calculators and on the web to help people that how carbon footprint can be calculated for their individual activities. So if you want to calculate yours, you can find it on internet. So the average carbon footprint for a person in United States is around 16 tons, which is one of the highest in the world. Globally, the average value is 4 tons. So, to avoid a rise in 2 degrees centigrade global temperature, the average global carbon footprint per year needs to be dropped to around 2 tons by 2050. Lowering of average carbon footprint value from 16 tons to 2 tons can be achieved slowly by making small changes in our day-to-day life. So how will you reduce your carbon footprint? Reduce meat in your diet and avoid wasting food. Yeah, meat is present at higher trophic level, and if you consume anything which is present at higher trophic level, your carbon footprints are going to be very high. So it is better to avoid meat in your food. You can walk, you can use bicycle, you can use carpooling and use public transport instead of your own cars to avoid higher rate of emissions, and ultimately you will have reduced your carbon footprint. Make sure that cars tire are properly inflated. Smaller home use less energy. Average households energy use is highest in houses like in 82.3 million BTU, followed by mobile homes and apartments. So smaller the house, better efficient it is. Consider installing solar panels at your homes. Eliminate single-use plastic. Energy consumed by devices in standby mode accounts for 5 to 10% of the residential energy use. So unplug electronic devices when not in use, or plug them into the power strip and turn the power strip off. Don't let them remain in standby mode. Follow 3R principle, that is reduce, reuse and recycle. Purchase item with a comparatively low carbon footprint when possible. And encourage and support greenhouse reducing practices in your community. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope after this video you will be having a better understanding of how carbon footprint and ecological footprints are different and how carbon footprints are important, and you will try to reduce your carbon footprint in coming future. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.